different than the other commissions. And as such, we have the latitude for acting on applications is somewhat limited by state statute and city ordinance. This meeting is being recorded tonight, and those appearing before the board will need to come forward, come to the podium so we can make sure to hear you, identify yourself, state your address, and then you will be sworn in from the record. The second announcement is that all motions made tonight will be made in the affirmative nature. That does not mean that the motions will be approved, but it means that the language will be in the affirmative when the motion is made. Each applicant will have the opportunity prior to the time that the motion is made to withdraw the application. The reason we bring that up is there are limitations as to when an applicant can reapply for the same request once a motion fails. At this time, I'm going to ask to swear in the staff. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes. And if we will call the roll.
Mr. Yulhorn?
Here.
Mr. Harless?
Here.
Ms. Bowden?
Here.
Ms. Cliff?
Here.
Alderman Gibson?
Here.
Chairman Sisson?
Here. Now that we've established a quorum, the minutes for the November meeting have been circulated. At this time, do I have a motion regarding those?
So moved.
Okay. In a second?
Second.
All right. If you'll call the roll.
Mr. Harless?
Abstain.
Ms. Bowden?
Yes, approve.
Mr. Yulhorn?
Abstain.
Ms. Cliff?
Approve.
Alderman Gibson?
Yes.
Chairman Sisson?
Yes. At this time, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is an application for 8945 Dogwood Road regarding Dogwood Elementary School, and we'll turn it over to staff to make their report.
Thank you very much, Chairman Sisson. Item number 4 tonight is at 8945 Dogwood Road, Dogwood Elementary School. The request in front of you tonight is an approval of a use on appeal to allow a wireless transmission facility cell tower in the residential district. The applicant tonight is present, Mike Fay of Prime Development Group. Dogwood Elementary School property is highlighted in red on the map in front of you. The school district is in a low-density single-family residential district. Just a little bit of history on the school. It was constructed in 1977 by Shelby County. Classroom addition was added in 1985. In 2014, Germantown Municipal School District took over Dogwood Elementary School, and in 2017, some portable classrooms were installed. The request tonight by Prime Development Group on behalf of T-Mobile and the school district is a proposal for a new cell tower facility on the southern portion of the site. This cell tower is south of Fire Station number 2, the Germantown Fire Station. Dogwood Park is here south of the proposed cell tower location, and then it is surrounded by residential properties on the east and west and south of the park. The proposed cell tower is for a 140-foot monopine design. This monopine would be placed in a 30 by 90 equipment enclosure with a 6-foot high wooden fence. This would be in front of the existing tree buffer here that separates the school property from the Dogwood Park property. The cell tower would be 148 feet from the principal school building and 236 feet from the playground. The justification from the applicant is to improve coverage and capacity within this area. This is a photo simulation of the proposed cell tower. The Fire Station 4, we are looking south towards the tree line and Dogwood Park. You can see the playground in the foreground, and just off to the side is the main school building. In terms of the ordinance, well, first let me touch on, this is the heat map of existing coverage for T-Mobile, and within the addition of a 140-foot tower, you can see the difference in red, moving from green in this area, from red in this area, with the addition of a 140-foot tower into this area. Now, as the Board of Zoning Appeals is going to consider this, coming under specific sections of the ordinance, 2386 does allow wireless transmission facilities in residential districts with the approval of a use on appeal. The specific requirements for wireless transmission facilities in residential districts required by the ordinance a 200-foot public street frontage on the parcel, the tower being set back from property lines a minimum distance of the tower's height plus 10 feet, unless it can be shown by engineering documents that it is collapsible in nature. A letter has been provided by the applicant demonstrating that. All associated buildings and structures must meet the minimum setback requirements of the residential zoning district. The tower max height is 140 feet. There is a minimum buffer strip of 50 feet required on the outside perimeter, and the applicant's engineers must also provide documentation that the wireless transmission facility meets or exceeds the ANSI standards for radio frequency emissions. The cell tower proposed by the school district, T-Mobile, and Prime Development Group complies with all of the criteria. The DRC may require additional landscaping around the equipment compound to further screen it from view of Dogwood Road once it gets to that point in the application. When it relates to the project characteristics that the BZA can review and must review in deliberating this use, it's whether or not the approval will impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property. Will it unreasonably increase congestion of public streets? Will it increase danger of fire and endanger public safety? Will it in any other way impair public health, safety, comfort, or welfare of inhabitants of the city? Further consideration by the BZA may relate to screening, landscaping, location, or other conditions necessary to protect the property in the vicinity. City departments have reviewed this use on appeal request, and there were no objections. Specifically cited by the city's IT department, who is charged with implementing the 2030 strategic objective of improving safety and cellular capacity and coverage within the city. This area does experience coverage issues, and the new cell tower would increase both coverage and capacity. That also goes in tandem with the fire station's needs and requirements for conducting their requirements under their standards for life safety responsibilities within the city. If the BZA does approve the use on appeal, the next steps for this application would be consideration by the Planning Commission for a site plan. Next step would be a Design Review Commission review and approval of fencing, landscaping, and tower aesthetics. And then finally, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen would consider a development contract for the construction of the cell tower. Myself, staff, Tony Fisher, the city's IT director, as well as the applicant are here for any questions of the board.
Thank you very much. At this time, is there questions of staff?
I have a question of the applicant.
Right. Can let's put that off until we let the applicant say their piece. Is there any questions of staff at this point? Yes, go ahead.
If I could ask Mr. Fisher to come forward and if you could let us know your thoughts as far as safety, security, how that relates back to those strategic objectives that we have as a city.
Ms. Gibson, I'm not certain whether Mr. Fisher was sworn or not.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. In fact, at this point, you're kind of already been introduced, but go ahead and introduce yourself and state your address, and we'll swear you in.
Sure. So Tony Fisher, I'm the City IT Director. My address is 3280 Darby Dan Cove, Germantown, Tennessee, 38138.
Thank you. And if you'll raise your right hand, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so as Mr. Ross mentioned, I'm responsible for moving forward the Vision 2030 strategic objective goal of improving cell coverage in the city. And so, we've looked at around the city. We've done our own studies in terms of coverage and capacity around the city. We know that this is one of our worst areas of the city in terms of coverage. You can go into the school, you can go into the fire station, and you may not have any service at all. Now, the school has done some work to try to improve that with some boosters. That's sort of a stopgap measure. It does help, but it doesn't fully give you what a tower like this would give you in the schools for their safety, making sure they have adequate cellular coverage. I'll give you a few other examples where we see issues and where this may help. So our emergency services, our police and fire, they depend heavily on cellular connections. They get a lot of their call information when they're going on emergency calls through that network. The ambulances, they communicate with the hospitals. They transmit things like EKGs and patient records to the hospitals over those connections. And, we dispatch with our ambulance service now. Our 911 center is going to look at the closest ambulance to dispatch on a call, and they get that information over the cellular network, so that when they don't have cellular coverage, dispatch may not know where they are to be able to figure out who's the closest one to dispatch. So it really does help improve response times. And then finally, if you look at the call stats that we have in terms of 911 calls in the city, we know that over 2/3 of our 911 calls come in through cellular network versus landline. That may change if there's better coverage, but we know that a lot of people are getting rid of their landlines, or they're just not using those now, and people want to call call 911 or call anybody over their cell phones.
Thank you.
If I could just
Sure.
ask one other question. In the application, there's references to T-Mobile as a potential person or company to use this service, but in your opinion, is this increased usage, that's not going to be limited by the fact that it's one company or another? It's something that would be available. Just the fact that this is being put up that's going to.
In my understanding, and probably a question for the applicant, is
Okay.
that my understanding, though, is that this tower can support multiple carriers. And I've heard the number 4, but again, that's probably a question for the applicant, but
Okay.
4 carriers. Most of the carriers that we have that service the city have, again, significant problems in that area. So we would hope that those carriers would come on and lease space on this tower.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Other questions of Mr. Fisher?
Just a response. I believe the answer to that question, Madam Chairman, was that T-Mobile would be the first carrier.
Okay.
And then there would be up to 4 carriers for that
Okay.
facility.
And then I think, Mr. Ross, did you have something else you wanted to state?
I just wanted to remind the board that we did distribute letters in favor of the application as well as letters in opposition at the executive session, so you do have those as part of your packet.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, thank you both. At this time, we want to invite the applicant to come up and add anything he wishes to what's been stated.
Thank you,
If you'll
Madam
state
Chairman.
your name.
Michael Fay, Prime Development Group, 7520 Capitol Drive.
You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help God.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for letting us come back with another tower. This one, again, going to another school, our schools. I mean, the beneficiary of the lease on this property will be our school system. When we look at this particular tower, and we appreciate the IT director's point, we're seeing a change in the way we looked at telephones every day. Most of the people we know have gotten rid of their landlines. When you're in Germantown, it's somewhere between 70 and 80% of the people use their cell phones. If you go outside, if you go for a walk, you take your cell phone. When you want to check what the weather is, you don't wait for it on TV, you check your cell phone. I live over in the Lansdowne area, and when I pull into my street, my phone drops. When we're out and we need this emergency services, that's just unacceptable. And what it does is it also puts harm on our emergency crews on how they're to figure out where we are. The call drop, well, now more work's been entailed for them to figure out where we are. The other thing that happens in this particular site is we've been working with the school system for almost 2 years on this site, on what they want to do with the property, how to put it in position, how to shift it. And I think Cameron did a really good job to show you that we tried to tuck the tower back into the tree line. First thing we want to do is let's don't cut any trees down. Got a great tree line that's there. We've got some privet hedges that could stand to be removed. We'll thin those out. But in order to go into the property, you're going to have to go through our access, which will be through the school, and then to that back area. Once again, as we talked about in the last meeting, we're talking maybe 1 or 2 technicians a month. That's it. So this facility that we put in here, after we made our original submittal, got with staff, they asked us to make a couple changes, shift a few things around. So now the tower is actually more centered in that rear area. We're a little bit farther away from the school from our original application, but we're still a really good distance from our neighbors to the west. We've also submitted the fall letter, which this board asked that we submit. The other thing that's changed from our original submittal, which I think you had gotten, you were talking about, Alderman, was the original application was just for T-Mobile. Well, Verizon has also committed to the site. So we have 2 carriers that want to go on here now. As we stated before in our last meeting, when these towers are approved, they need to be designed so they can carry minimum 4 carriers. This tower will meet that requirement. The company that's building this, and I know it's confusing for some residents to read, the company that is going to be building and managing this is a subsidiary of Tower Ventures. They've been building towers in Memphis and Shelby County for years. They will be handling, taking care of it. The lease will be between them and the school board. We tried also on this one, try to make sure that we had a tree that had adequate cover, and the one you see here is a little bit better than the last one we showed you before. So taking into account what this board told us last month on how you want to see what these towers look like, when we got with the school board, we did 3 things. 1, tuck it in and make sure that it isn't a tree line that's not sticking out like a sore thumb. Number 2, also make sure that we were away from playgrounds and we were in areas that were not in an area where children would be. 2, we also wanted to make sure that when we put that road back there, that it was not designed in a fashion so that someone was invited to drive back there. We want to make sure it just has a concrete connection, and the back section is gravel. We'll continue to work with school on access, things like that, but in this particular application, we really put a great deal of time in trying to situate that in the back. One of the most unique things about this piece of property is behind the school is a park. So we gain another 217 feet from where we are. So we've done as good a job as we can. And as we talked about before, these towers need to be situated geographically where those maps are called the amoeba maps, where they say here's where we have a hole in coverage. So it's not as though we can arbitrarily go, hey, let's go up over here. It's based on topography and demand. That's all I have, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of the applicant?
Mr. Fay, can you talk about the fall of the tower?
We once again have submitted again that it is the collapsible tower that will fall on itself and stay in the compound.
So the wooden structure, fencing area around there, if it fell, it would fall within that structure?
Yes, sir. It actually collapses on top of itself before it would come. It doesn't break at midpoint. It breaks a little bit higher.
Okay, but then it falls on itself and stays within that.
It's structurally sound to do that. That's correct.
Are there any guidelines outside the structure?
No, sir.
Just a single pole?
These towers kind of look like a giant hexagon or whatever, the multigon would be that big. But they are designed structurally for that very reason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, when other people co-locate on the tower, will that improve the coverage areas? You know, you've got the map that shows that it improves just with one, I guess.
Oh, those maps are just T-Mobile. So when we look at Verizon, depending on where the Verizon coverage is, as I like to call them, the amoeba maps, theirs might be a little bit different.
So, I mean,
Mr. Yulhorn,
I'm sorry.
can I get you to speak into the microphone, please?
Yeah. So, as people co-locate, the chances are probably pretty good that the amoeba map will have even more and more and better coverage.
You know, as Cameron said, when you look at the map, you can. In fact, Cameron may be the first planning person that's actually explained those correctly in all the ones we've been in. So kudos to Cameron. But when you're looking at the map where you see in the center of the map where it's green, what you're actually seeing when you look at the one to the left is more the topography of the land. Cell towers are point to point. If you have a dip, sorry. If you have a mountain, sorry. If you live in Lansdowne Place, sorry. So when you're pushing through in these areas, it is a connection that has to happen. And keep in mind that your cell towers are triangulating. So depending on where the other two that are communicating with each other, but the more towers that we have height, that ends proliferation. With this height that the Mayor and Board of Aldermen gave us, having the 140 feet, now we don't have to have as many towers because that height affords us the ability to pick up more topography.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you very much for your time. At this time, we're going to ask for anybody in favor of the applicant if they would like to speak in favor of this application. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this application? If you'll come forward and approach this podium, I would ask that you if you'll state your name and your address.
All right. My name is Valerie Burgess, and I'm a resident of Glen Alden, PUD.
What is your specific address?
I can't hear you.
Your specific address?
Oh, 9028 Glen Alden Drive.
Okay. If you'll raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, so help me God. At first, when I heard about this, I was so upset because I realized that the ugly tower was going to be across the street from where we live. And I thought that was the problem. But now that I've been up till 2:30, two nights, and I have used 2 reams of paper, finding out that that's not the problem. The problem is the danger, the radiation. And people will say, oh, you know, these people are putting them in. Very little. Not true. There are report after report. Doctors, Harvard Medical School, Alliance of Healthy Environments from the nurses, all kinds of reports. I ran out of ink. I had a ream of paper, but there are so many reasons. Leukemia has been proven from some of the children that were exposed to this. Now you could say, well, it must have been they just had it. It's not true. They're proving it causes many health issues. Now, why are they doing it at the schools? It's obvious. It's an EV market. The school wants the money. They're delighted. But at the sacrifice of the children, I cannot believe that people would even consider that on a school ground. I mean, it just blows my mind. And I'm 85 years old, and I don't have any small children. But I can tell you right now, if I did, I'd take them out of a school that had a cell tower. And I have got a few people who are opposed to it, and almost all of them cited not only the ugliness of it, which we can live with that, but we can't live with the radiation hazard. I've had cancer, my husband too, and I don't want it again. I would appreciate very much if you would deny it.
Thank you very much for your time. At this time, is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition of this application? Is there any further discussion among the commission?
Mr. Ross, you mentioned in our executive session about ANSI standards as far as what that would be, and this may be a question for our applicant as far as what those levels, what are acceptable, what are not. Is that something Mr. Fay would want to speak to, or is that something that you could possibly elaborate on?
It depends on which ANSI standard, for the radio frequency or for the collapsible area.
For the radio frequency.
I'll have to defer to the subject matter experts.
I thought you might.
And if you wouldn't mind just clarifying what the standard, you're using an acronym, the standard, tell us what that means, what that stands for, if you can remember. Sorry. Didn't mean
Well,
to put you on.
once again, Michael Fay, Prime Development Group. The studies that the lady has presented are much like many things we can all find on the internet. And they are scary the way they're written. But we all recognize one agency, the American Cancer Society, and the American Cancer Society has said there is no threat.
They revised that.
And with that, as well as the federal government has said there's no threat. A lot of the things that have happened in the industry over the decades, this technology gets better and better. We all carried around brick phones. So it's very difficult to look online and find anything that is a standard that says that this is what's happening. I can tell you without any doubt that there is no credible study that has been allowed by a court, which we would all say would be our standard, to be admissible. So there is no standard out there that is claiming and can prove that there is this issue. We all may recall at one time when we had seen on 60 Minutes that the TVA towers, if you live near a TVA tower, and that electrostatic line was going to cause cancer. We later found out that was a hoax. So ladies and gentlemen, what we're dealing with is unfortunately the benefit and the nightmare of the internet, that unfortunately whatever you want to find, it's out there. But as I said before, the American Cancer Society, which has no reason to argue or not argue, has rendered that there is no threat.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on for just a second. Michael, can I ask you another question? Ms. Burgess brought up that the school wants it for the financial, reasons. What is do you know what the annual income from this tower would be?
I don't. Unfortunately, being the consultant, I deal with the planning and the engineering, but I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
At this time, is there any further comments by the commission?
Ms. Sisson,
Yes.
I'd like to point out that this isn't the first time this issue's been raised with regard to cell towers, and the Federal Communications Commission in the Telecommunications Act has taken basically the control of this matter and allows emissions from cell towers within the ANSI standards.
Right. And that was back to what you were saying, that the ANSI, and what is an ANSI standards, where, who said that we were below, that this application is below the required amount? Just confirming that that's what was stated.
The applicant's engineer provided documentation that the wireless transmission meets or exceeds the standards for radio frequency emissions.
Okay. All right, at this time, any further discussion among the commission? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, if you'll call the roll, please.
Alderman Gibson,
I will be voting to approve this based on the fact that this is a safety and security issue. I believe that it is needed and necessary.
Ms. Bowden,
I vote to approve. I agree with Alderman Gibson on the safety requirements.
Ms. Cliff?
I agree to approve because I think we need the increased cell coverage for the 911 situation, whether you're calling into 911 or you're the fire station that's receiving the calls.
Okay. Mr. Uhorn?
Yes.
Mr. Harless?
One of the biggest issues we hear from the residents of Germantown is the lack of cell phone coverage for personal calls and for 911 emergency calls. For that reason, I'm voting yes.
Chairman Sisson?
For the reasons previously stated, I agree, vote yes. At this point, the motion passes, and we will move on to the next item on our agenda, 9755 Wolf River Boulevard, which is Houston High School.
Didn't hear a word. Did they approve it or not?
They did.
They approved it. I hope you don't have children in your school.
All right, thank you, Chairman Sisson. The next item before you is also a request from Germantown Municipal School District. This is for use on appeal as well to allow additional accessory uses at Houston High School, specifically expansion of the athletic and arts facilities. Houston High School is located in the R single-family residential zoning district. Houston High School was originally constructed by Shelby County Board of Education in 1988. In 2003, there was a classroom addition, and then in 2014, the school was transferred to the Germantown Municipal School District. The school is on a 44-acre piece of property, and it has a building complex area of 266,104 square feet and 753 parking spaces. So this is the existing site layout of Houston High School. And then the request before you is to expand their athletic and arts facilities in 4 phases. Phase 1 would be a new football field house. Phase 2 would be an expansion of the existing band room. Phase 3 would be an expansion of the performing arts area. And Phase 4 would be turning the current band storage room into a concession stand, the paddock. If approved, the construction would start with Phase 1, the field house, in spring of 2019, and ideally all phases would be completed by the end of 2020. Here you can see again where Phase 1 would be, the field house next to the football field, and this is the perimeter road around Houston High School and Houston Levy Park. Per section 23-228 of the zoning ordinance, it outlines the different uses that the Board of Zoning Appeals may consider in residential districts. Public school is one of them, and an increase of accessory buildings or structures or accessory uses to a public school is also an allowed use per the Board of Zoning Appeals. Here's a rendering of what the field house would look like. And then this would be the field house here, and then the converted concession stand, the paddock. In reviewing use on appeal applications like this, the Board of Zoning Appeals must determine whether or not the approval would impair adequate supply of light and air to the adjacent property. Would it unreasonably increase congestion on public streets, increase danger of fire, or endanger public safety, or in any other way impair public health, safety, comfort, or welfare of the inhabitants. Further consideration may relate to screening, landscaping, location, and other conditions necessary to protect the property in the vicinity. So in considering this use on appeal for increased accessory uses, those are the criteria that you would look towards. If the Board of Zoning Appeals does approve the use on appeal, the next step would be to go to the Planning Commission for a revised site plan, and then on to the Design Review Commission for the building elevations, fencing, and landscaping. The applicant's agent, Fleming Architects, they are here and for any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions of staff? At this time, I'd like to bring the applicant's representatives up to make a presentation, or to add anything that you'd like to what's already been presented. If you'll state your name and your address.
Hi, Steve Landwehr, Fleming Architects, 5101 Wheelers Drive, Memphis, Tennessee. We're in Suite 215. Zip code is 38117.
And if you'll raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right. Go ahead.
I think staff adequately described the project. This all came about some time ago. There was a generous private donor who said that he would give $1 million if the school board, the city, and the boosters would each match that $1 million. So that comes to $4 million. And I believe everybody agreed. The money is in place. So as Ms. Gorlewski mentioned, the athletic field house would be phase 1, and we're in the process of finalizing drawings now. We'll have those ready for code enforcement and for basically staff's review, both Planning Commission and DRC here very soon. Phase 1 is the athletic field house. It contains basically the football weight room, locker rooms, coaches' offices, and some much needed storage that they do not currently have. Phase 2 is the band room addition, about 4,000 square feet. Currently, the band has all of their instruments and everything in a metal building that is just north of the long oval, the field house. So that's why that portion is phase 4. We have to build the band room before we can actually move the old equipment out of the existing metal building. Phase 3, we have it described as the auditorium renovation and expansion. Currently, we're in discussions with GMSD as to whether or not they're actually going to expand that, because that would actually impact a driveway that they have there as well as some parking. It may just end up being a renovation within the 4 walls that they currently have. But that is a part of this request from the donor, is that not only is there an athletic component, but an arts component. And then phase 4 again would be renovating the existing metal building, which is currently the band storage room, into a concession stand and much needed additional restrooms for the football field.
All right, thank you very much. Is there questions of the applicant?
Mr. Landwehr. Sorry, Mr. Landwehr. The renderings look great.
Thank you.
Very, very nice. Has this been approved by the school board?
Yes, it has.
Okay. And what would be the completion date of the 4 phases?
Since we really do not know when the last phase will start, we do think that we can get everything done by 2020. It was the request of the donor that all work start by the end of 2019. He put a timeline on his donation, and the only hitch there might be getting the band room complete in time to move the band equipment out so that work can start on the concession stand. So hopefully that's been worked out in their contract. I'm not privy to that information.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Landwehr, are you aware of any efforts by the district as far as community meetings with the neighbors that are close by, as far as any input on some of the renderings? Has that happened?
That's a great question. I do know that the boosters have reached out to the community for additional money, and the people that have attended those booster club meetings have seen the renderings. It was a request by staff that we get with GMSD to set up a public meeting so that the rest of the people who were not involved in the fundraising efforts, that they're made aware of this as well. But it has not yet been set up, but we're in the process of working with GMSD on that.
I think that's a great idea. At one of the suggestions of our Mr. Harless in executive session, I think that the Houston High School Arts and Athletic Association, that foundation did an excellent job in making sure they told their story as far as what they believe the needs were. The district came forward, the city as well, and then with other private citizens who really stepped forward in a big way. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing this move forward. Thank you.
All right. Other?
Just an add-on, I know if it's approved tonight, you'll end up coming before the Planning Commission, and I would hope that you're able to meet with the residents prior to coming before the Planning Commission.
We're working on it.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition of this application? Is there any further discussion among the commission? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Right, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Harless?
I think this is an excellent private-public partnership that is sorely needed in our community. I applaud the anonymous donor as well as the fundraisers to make this happen. I think it's going to be a welcome addition. I vote yes.
Mr. Yulhorn?
Yes.
Ms. Clift?
I vote yes. I think it will enhance our students' high school experience.
Ms. Bowden?
Yes.
Alderman Gibson?
For reasons stated previously, yes.
Chairman Sisson?
For previously stated reasons, yes. And the motion passes. Thank you very much. This time, we're going to turn it over to staff again for our last item, 2505 Howard Road.
And I'm recusing myself.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Sisson. The item before you is the request for a variance to allow a second driveway in the front yard at 2505 Howard Road in the R District. Here you can see this is the subject property located at the corner of Howard and Mimosa Road. This is currently a vacant lot. Here you can see it's currently a vacant lot. There is a proposed new house. The main driveway would be off of Mimosa here, leading into the garage. And then the request is for a second driveway here on Howard Road. It would not connect to the main driveway off of Mimosa. Here you can, it's a little bit hard to see, but this is the layout of the new house. Then this would be the second driveway off of Howard, the circular driveway, and then this is the main driveway here off of Mimosa leading to the garage. So the specific reason for the variance is our ordinance states in section 23-235A, parking requirements, off-street parking in the R district should be on the same parcel or lot, but not in any portion of the front yard. Additionally, the BMA has stated that they do not expressly allow a second additional driveway in the front yard setback. However, this lot is located on the corner of a somewhat busier road here in Howard, and it does experience an unusual circumstance due to the exceptional nature of the lot being on this corner here. There's also, unfortunately, you can't see it in this aerial photo very well, but we looked at it in executive session on Street View, and there isn't any on-street parking available on Howard, so the applicant said the primarily reason for this circular driveway would be for deliveries or guests to get them off of busy Howard Road. So if this is approved, the next step would be that the applicant would apply for a curb cut permit through the engineering division. The applicant's agent is here for questions.
Right. Any questions of staff?
I do. On Howard, I know curb cut is there are no curbs and gutter, correct?
I think there is a curb. I think we saw that there is a curb on there. It's just it's a narrower street that doesn't allow for on-street parking on either side.
And then on Mimosa, I believe
there is a section. I'm not sure about this exact portion of Mimosa, but there is a section of Mimosa that is improved. So maybe the applicant could speak to that for us.
All right. Thank you very much. At this time, bring the applicant forward, the applicant's representative, to add to the current presentation.
Hi, I'm Daniel Jones, 3077 Cotton Plant Road, Memphis, Tennessee, 38119.
All right. And if you'll raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help God?
I do.
All right. And if you have anything to add.
Thank you for considering my extra driveway cut. I'm here tonight with my builder, John Duke, who's a very good builder, and my wife and I are really excited about this house. The two things that are really driving us wanting the additional driveway at the front And they're both, I think, really intricate to the house working properly. The first is just safety, and you guys were speaking about the curbs. There's a picture of what it looks like when you're coming down Howell Road. It's literally impossible to get to the front of my house without having a driveway. And if you were to stop in front, someone's going to run over you. So it's a safety issue. It's just a means of actually being able to get to the front of the new house. The second thing is we're building a one-story home. And my wife and I have big families. We've been around a lot of people that have wheelchair issues. We have elderly parents that are still alive, even at my age. And we wanted this house to be totally accessible to anyone that wants to come in the living space without having to have obstacles of steps, stairs, and so on. And it's not obvious from looking at this, but the front of Howard at the curb, the elevation of the curb on Howard compared to the elevation of the curb on Mimosa is about 8 feet. Howard is, you can't tell from this picture, but it's diving tremendously. So really the only way to get easily into the front of the house, and we've designed everything in the house to be accessible from this front door. If we don't have a driveway that allows people to pull up and actually get into our home from that access, I don't know, I guess we'll wheel them up the back. But anyway, we're really hoping that this is something that you guys will consider for us.
All right, questions of the applicant?
Will you be putting in sidewalks?
No, so there are no sidewalks in the division.
Mr. Jones, do you believe, I know Sarah alluded to this during the staff report, guests that come, these will be folks coming and going, delivery folks,
sure.
Guests that come in for a dinner or a luncheon, but you're not going to be using it as a permanent parking?
We would not want anyone parking in the front of our house. We have ample parking in the back. It's a steep driveway, but we've had engineers look at it. It's accessible by vehicle, and it's not uncommon. But no, we wouldn't want anyone parking out front for more than a visit. Sure.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Other questions of the applicant? All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the variance? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition?
I would just like to clarify, I incorrectly stated the name of the permit that the applicant would need to get if this is approved. If this is approved, they would need to get a street cut permit from engineering, not a curb cut permit, but a street cut permit.
All right. Thank you very much for that clarification. Is there any further discussion among the commission? All right. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve.
Second.
All right. And if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Harless?
I vote yes.
Ms. Clift?
I vote yes.
Ms. Bowden?
I vote yes due to the exceptional nature of the lot.
Alderman Gibson?
I vote yes, safe access on that corner lot and the exceptional nature of the property, yes.
Chairman Sisson?
I will vote yes as well. I'm glad that the applicant pointed out the topography issues because they were not apparent by the drawings and the pictures, and so I think that this is a reasonable thing to have considering this lot. So, and with that, the motion passes. At this time, I don't know of any new business or old business that we have.
Happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
See, I was going to say, I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season, and we will see you next year.
On the first time.
We're adjourned.
We're adjourned.